you walk out here and this looks like paint, how do you do this? Today we dive into how to get rid of this ugly antenna on the pillar of this old Subaru. All of them have them. You got to do a little bit of welding, put a plate in there. Randall's going to run us down on how to fix this and make it look like as if it was never there. I'm in the garage right now. We're getting a lot done. We're actually working on a new garage video right now that'll be coming out, so we're making a lot of progress, adding a lot of things to the garage. We'll talk about how the floor, the condition of it, and everything is like that. So when you see that video, look out for it. Let's get into removing that antenna. Pulling up to AZ Metals to get a 3" by 6" 20 gauge piece of steel. At Home Depot we're going to get a couple things: guide coat, a gray primer used to see highs and lows on bodywork, a flap disc. We use it on a grinder. High speed sander basically is what it becomes. It removes material fast and smooths out metal. Welding gloves, of course. Grab a wire brush as well to remove welding dust. This makes sure that there's no holes in the weld and you don't miss any spots. Removing the weather stripping and the door trim. Be very careful with this. It's hard to find replacement pieces for these cars because they're so old. Cutting the metal to place inside the antenna hole. Use acetone to clean the surface for the best welding results. Cutting the bolts off, grinding the welds down smooth. Randall, run us through kind of what went down. You're talking about your welder. We're waiting to get a new one.
Yeah, so I got a pretty basic welder, just a flux core welder. It's not very adjustable, so with this car having some pretty thin gauge steel on the body makes it a little difficult to weld on. As you can see, I've burned a few holes through, so I've had to make some pretty messy welds to try and cover up this old antenna hole that we're going to be covering up. So from here I'm just going to be doing some Bondo work and just covering it up and make the body lines flow.
Nice. Apply a thick layer of Bondo and then use the air compressor dual action sander to knock off a majority of the Bondo. Randall used 220 grit with the hand sander to knock it down completely and get it down smooth, and then apply a final layer of guide coat. He did use all of the painter's tape to keep things from getting too messy and all over the place. I just walked out here to check what was going on, and look at this! Randall went off. Look at this. Did you show them this up close? This, okay, the Bondo work that I've done, I thought was pretty good, but when you walk out here and this looks like paint, how do you do this? So, I'm excited. Randall's blown my expectations out of the water. Like, this is smoother than the actual paint. This is so cool.
Yeah, I put a little guide coat on there, obviously. Just rattle can, that's all gonna come off when we put the actual primer on the car. But it'll definitely get a lot easier with the right equipment.
It has the original antenna piece was there, then you got the grinder out and grinded it as flat as you could first, right?
Yeah, so what I was grinding first was there was a couple of the factory riv nuts that held that antenna in place on the car, which stuck out a little bit past the body line, I guess you could say. And so I was grinding those down, which a regular sander would have a pretty hard time doing. So that's why I brought out the flap disc on the grinder. And then with the flap discs, those can remove a lot of material very quick. So that's kind of what the Bondo helps with in terms of getting everything back to the way it should.
So grind as flat as you can, put the steel plate in, magnet, tack weld that piece in, and then you ended up putting bolts in. Did you show that earlier?
Yeah, so the bolt method is actually something I learned on a guy's channel that I've watched here recently. Basically kind of the same thing with the welder that I have. It's burning through the holes, or burning through the steel pretty quick. So that bolt method, basically you just shove a bolt in whatever hole you're gonna fill, and then you just kind of tack around it, and then you bring out the grinder again and then grind that smooth, and then you can fill in all the imperfections with the Bondo.
So then to put those in, tack weld the bolts. Did you have to grind the bolts off?
I did grind the bolts off, yeah. Cut them, and then before I actually welded them in, I found some bolts that would fit in the hole pretty tight, so I was able to thread those in there just a little bit to where they wouldn't fall out. And then I actually got the grinder, cut those bolts flush, pretty close to level with the body, and then I went ahead and welded in around that, and then I went and grinded it, and then put the Bondo on top and sanded everything down.
Nice. Is there any tips, or like what kind of went through your head as far as the Bondo? I know you caked like a lot on. You had that part already taped off from the welding portion, right? Or was that for the Bondo you taped? The
tape was just kind of to help me guide, so I didn't have Bondo going everywhere, because I can be pretty messy sometimes. So I like to keep everything nice and neat.
Cool. So is there anything else we have to do to this? Is this gonna get? We talked about this little mark right here that gets filled in with paint, or
that we'll go ahead and sand down a little more. I just kind of wanted to get this guide coat nice and smooth, and just so I can see if there's any other imperfections, and made sure all the body lines matched and everything looked good.
Did this come out pretty easily?
Yeah, those were just a few Phillips screws, and there was a couple rivets. I think there was one here, one right here, and then one right there, and then that was really all it was, and then it just pulled right out.
Nice. Sweet. If this is your first time here and you enjoyed what you saw today, I wanted to let you know about Karma Speed. Karma Speed is a brand we created on this channel for our community. We're all about building confidence in the garage. We have some sweet gear at karmaspeed.com, and I'm working behind the scenes to build some resources for parts and stuff like that to help you along your car journey and make the hard things easy and just enjoy cars for what they are. Thanks so much. I appreciate you.